The rain poured over Port Charles like the city itself was mourning another broken soul. Sirens echoed through the wet streets while flashing blue lights reflected off the puddles outside General Hospital. Nobody expected the night to end with handcuffs, blood, and a shocking arrest that would leave families divided forever. And at the center of it all stood General Hospital fan favorite Curtis Ashford. But this time, Curtis wasn't the hero. He was the man being dragged to jail for violently assaulting Isaiah Gannon. The nightmare began earlier that evening inside the Metro Court. Curtis had already been spiraling for days. Between mounting pressure in his marriage, hidden secrets circulating through Port Charles, and the constant fear that everything he loved was slipping away, he was barely holding himself together. Friends noticed the change. Even Portia Robinson sensed something dangerous brewing beneath the surface. Curtis had become quieter, colder, more unpredictable. But nobody imagined he was close to exploding. Meanwhile, Isaiah Gannon had unknowingly walked straight into the storm. Isaiah had recently grown closer to several people in Port Charles, and rumors were spreading that he possessed information capable of destroying multiple relationships. Whether those rumors were true or not hardly mattered anymore. Curtis believed Isaiah had crossed a line, and once Curtis convinced himself of that, there was no stopping what came next. The confrontation began in the Metro Court restaurant. Witnesses later described the tension as unbearable. Curtis approached Isaiah's table with fury already burning in his eyes. "What did you say to Portia?" Curtis demanded. Isaiah stood slowly, trying to remain calm. "I think you need to take a breath," he replied carefully. But Curtis wasn't listening. For weeks he had buried his anger beneath fake smiles and forced patience. Now every ounce of rage erupted at once. "You think you can walk into this town and destroy people's lives?" Curtis shouted. Several guests froze. Others immediately pulled out their phones. Isaiah tried again to de-escalate the situation. "You've got the wrong idea." Wrong answer. In one horrifying moment, Curtis lunged across the table and slammed Isaiah backward. Plates shattered onto the floor as patrons screamed. Isaiah hit the ground hard before Curtis began throwing punches with brutal force. "Curtis, stop!" someone yelled, but he couldn't. Years of pain, betrayal, resentment, and fear exploded violently out of him. Security rushed forward, but Curtis shoved them away like they weighed nothing. Isaiah attempted to defend himself, but Curtis was beyond reason. Blood appeared near Isaiah's mouth, then his forehead, then everywhere. The entire Metro Court descended into chaos. Finally, Sonny Corinthos and 2 security guards managed to pull Curtis away. Even then, Curtis kept trying to break free. "He lied to me!" Curtis roared. Isaiah could barely sit upright. The room fell silent as Portia rushed inside moments later. Her face turned pale at the sight before her. Curtis breathing heavily. Isaiah bleeding on the floor. Police sirens growing louder outside. And suddenly everyone understood. There was no fixing this, no explanation, no taking it back. The PCPD arrived within minutes. Anna Devane stepped into the lobby and immediately assessed the disaster unfolding in front of her. Her expression changed the moment she saw Curtis. "Tell me this isn't what it looks like," Anna said quietly. Curtis stared back without regret. He deserved it. Those 4 words shattered whatever chance remained for the situation to calm down. Anna looked toward Isaiah, whose injuries already appeared severe enough to require emergency treatment. A paramedic whispered something to her, and her face hardened instantly. Possible concussion, broken ribs, internal injuries. This wasn't a simple bar fight anymore. It was felony assault. Portia rushed toward Curtis in disbelief. "What have you done?" she whispered. For the first time all night, Curtis looked uncertain. The adrenaline was fading. Reality was finally crashing down. Isaiah was loaded onto a stretcher while officers began taking statements from horrified witnesses. Nearly everyone described the same thing. Curtis lost control. Curtis attacked first. Curtis wouldn't stop. As the evidence piled up, Anna had no choice. "I'm placing you under arrest for aggravated assault." The words stunned the entire room. Even Curtis seemed shocked hearing them aloud. Anna stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Don't make this harder than it already is." But Curtis wasn't ready to surrender. Years of pride and pain burned inside him. For one dangerous second, it looked like he might resist arrest. Then he saw Portia crying, and everything inside him collapsed. Without another word, Curtis slowly turned around and placed his hands behind his back. Click. The handcuffs locked shut. Gasps spread through the Metro court. Curtis Ashford, respected businessman, husband, father figure, and longtime Port Charles protector, was being led away in handcuffs like a common criminal. Outside, cameras flashed wildly. Someone shouted questions. Another reporter yelled, "Curtis, did you try to kill Isaiah?" Curtis said nothing. He simply stared ahead as police shoved him into the back of the squad car. And for the first time in years, Port Charles truly feared what Curtis had become. Back at General Hospital, doctors rushed Isaiah into surgery. Elizabeth Baldwin worked frantically alongside the trauma team while Portia waited anxiously nearby. Despite what had happened, Portia looked devastated. Not just for Isaiah, for Curtis too. Because deep down, she knew this wasn't simply about one fight. Curtis had been unraveling for a long time. Isaiah eventually stabilized, but the damage remained serious. Doctors confirmed multiple fractures and internal bleeding. Had security arrived even 30 seconds later, the outcome might have been fatal. That revelation spread through Port Charles like wildfire. By morning, everyone was talking. Some blamed Isaiah, others defended Curtis. But the law only cared about facts, and the facts looked terrible. At the PCPD, Curtis sat alone inside a holding cell, staring blankly at the concrete wall. The anger was gone now. Only regret remained. Hours passed before Anna finally approached the bars. "You need a lawyer," she told him. Curtis laughed bitterly. "You think a lawyer fixes this?" "No," Anna admitted, "but it might stop your life from completely falling apart." Too late. That was the only thought repeating in Curtis's mind. Too late. Meanwhile, Portia faced impossible questions from friends and co-workers. Some demanded to know why Curtis snapped. Others whispered ugly rumors suggesting jealousy, betrayal, or hidden secrets connected to Isaiah. Portia denied everything, but privately, she feared there might be truth buried beneath the rumors, because Curtis had recently accused her of hiding things, of protecting Isaiah, of lying. At first she dismissed his paranoia. Now she wondered if something much darker had been festering inside him. Later that afternoon, Jordan Ashford visited Curtis in jail. Their relationship had survived countless disasters over the years, but seeing Curtis behind bars shook her deeply. "You scared people," Jordan said softly. Curtis avoided eye contact. "I know. You could have killed him." That finally hit him hardest. Curtis closed his eyes. For the first time since the attack, tears formed. "I didn't mean for it to go that far." Jordan sighed painfully. "That's the problem with rage. It always goes farther than you mean." Curtis asked about Isaiah's condition, and Jordan explained that he was expected to survive. Relief washed over Curtis instantly, though it did little to ease the guilt crushing him. Then Jordan revealed the worst news yet. The district attorney planned to pursue maximum charges. Why? Because multiple witnesses recorded the attack on their phones, and the footage was horrifying. Jordan hesitated before adding another devastating detail. The video already leaked online. Curtis looked physically ill. In one night, his entire reputation had been destroyed. Across Port Charles, reactions remained divided. Some longtime friends defended Curtis passionately, insisting stress and emotional manipulation pushed him over the edge. Others weren't so forgiving. Trina Robinson struggled especially hard with the situation. She loved Curtis deeply, but she couldn't excuse what happened. "How do you come back from something like this?" she asked tearfully. Nobody had an answer. At General Hospital, Isaiah slowly regained consciousness. Bruised and weak, he immediately asked one question. "Where's Curtis?" Doctors urged him to rest, but Isaiah remained strangely calm considering the circumstances. "He needs help," Isaiah whispered. That shocked everyone. Most expected Isaiah to demand revenge. Instead, he seemed more concerned about Curtis's mental state. Portia couldn't understand it. After what he did to you, why would you defend him? Isaiah looked toward the window thoughtfully. Because that wasn't just anger. Something inside him broke. Those words haunted Portia, because she feared Isaiah might be right. Days later, Curtis appeared in court wearing a dark suit instead of jail clothes, but the humiliation remained unbearable. Reporters packed the courtroom while whispers echoed through the gallery. Some people stared at him with pity, others with disgust. The prosecutor painted a terrifying picture of uncontrolled violence, emphasizing Isaiah's injuries and Curtis's refusal to stop attacking even after Isaiah hit the floor. Then came the video. The courtroom watched in silence as footage showed Curtis repeatedly striking Isaiah with horrifying intensity. Portia broke down crying. Jordan looked away. Even Anna appeared shaken. When the video ended, Curtis couldn't lift his head. His attorney argued emotional distress and temporary loss of control. But the damage was already done. The judge denied immediate release. Curtis would remain in custody until trial. Gasps erupted again. Curtis looked utterly defeated as deputies escorted him back toward holding. But before disappearing through the courtroom doors, he locked eyes with Portia one final time. The pain between them was indescribable, because both of them knew this tragedy had changed everything forever. Back in jail, Curtis struggled to survive emotionally. In Port Charles, he had always been respected. Now inmates recognized him from the viral video. Some mocked him, others challenged him. The pressure mounted daily. One inmate sneered, "Big tough guy beat up a doctor, huh?" Curtis ignored the insults initially, but prison life slowly chipped away at him. Isolation consumed him. Sleep became impossible. Worst of all, he kept replaying the attack in his mind. The blood, the screaming, Portia's devastated face. Every memory tortured him endlessly. Meanwhile, Isaiah's recovery continued, though complications emerged unexpectedly. Doctors discovered nerve damage that might permanently affect his surgical abilities. That revelation changed everything again. Now Curtis faced potential civil lawsuits in addition to criminal charges. Portia visited Curtis several days later, though the meeting quickly became emotional. "I don't even recognize you anymore," she admitted quietly. Curtis looked shattered. "I don't recognize myself either." Portia demanded the truth. "What really happened that night?" Curtis hesitated before finally confessing something darker than anyone expected. He admitted he'd become obsessed with the belief that Isaiah was manipulating everyone around him. Every conversation, every glance, every rumor fed Curtis's paranoia until he convinced himself Isaiah threatened his family. "I thought I was protecting us," Curtis whispered. Portia stared at him in horror. "You nearly killed a man." Curtis nodded slowly. "I know." Their marriage suddenly felt impossibly fragile. Elsewhere in Port Charles, the fallout spread everywhere. Friends chose sides. Relationships cracked under pressure. The attack became the only thing anyone discussed. And still, the biggest question remained unanswered. Could Curtis ever truly come back from this? Weeks later, Isaiah shocked everyone again by requesting a private meeting with the district attorney. Rumors exploded instantly. Was he asking for harsher punishment? Demanding prison time? Seeking revenge? But the truth stunned Port Charles completely. Isaiah requested leniency. The district attorney couldn't believe it. "Mr. Gannon, this man nearly beat you to death." Isaiah nodded weakly. "And if he were truly evil, I'd want him buried under the jail." "But," Isaiah sighed, "I think Curtis lost himself. I don't think he's beyond saving." That decision divided the town all over again. Some called Isaiah compassionate, others called him foolish. But one person was overwhelmed by emotion after hearing the news. Curtis. For the first time since his arrest, he broke down completely inside his jail cell. The man he assaulted was showing him mercy he didn't deserve. And somehow, that hurt worse than hatred ever could. Eventually, the trial date approached. Tension consumed Port Charles as everyone prepared for devastating testimony. Curtis's defense team planned to argue psychological breakdown and emotional instability. The prosecution planned to portray him as dangerously violent. And right in the middle stood Portia, torn between loyalty and fear. The courtroom became a battlefield of shattered lives. Witness after witness described the horrifying attack. Metro Court employees cried while testifying. Customers recalled screaming in terror. One witness admitted they thought Isaiah was going to die. Then Isaiah himself took the stand. The courtroom fell silent as he slowly approached the witness chair, still visibly scarred from the assault. The prosecutor asked the obvious question: "Did Curtis Ashford attack you without justification?" Isaiah paused, then answered carefully, "Yes." Curtis lowered his head. But what Isaiah said next changed the atmosphere instantly. "I also believe Curtis was suffering emotionally long before that night." The prosecutor frowned. "That doesn't excuse attempted murder." "No," Isaiah replied softly. "But maybe understanding why matters too." Curtis looked stunned. So did everyone else. Isaiah described Curtis as a man drowning emotionally, consumed by fear and mistrust until reality itself became distorted. "He needed help," Isaiah said, "not silence." Portia began crying again, because deep down, she knew she had seen signs of Curtis struggling long before the attack. But nobody realized how serious it had become. Not until blood covered the Metro Court floor. After weeks of testimony, the verdict day finally arrived. Port Charles packed the courtroom. Curtis stood motionless beside his attorney while the judge reviewed the jury's decision. The tension became unbearable. Finally, the foreperson stood. On the charge of aggravated assault, Curtis closed his eyes. "We find the defendant guilty." Portia gasped. Jordan looked heartbroken. Curtis himself barely reacted. Maybe part of him expected this all along. But then came another surprise. The judge acknowledged Isaiah's request for leniency alongside evidence of Curtis's psychological deterioration leading up to the attack. Instead of a lengthy prison sentence, Curtis received reduced incarceration combined with mandatory psychiatric treatment and anger rehabilitation. Some called it mercy. Others called it injustice. Curtis simply called it survival. As deputies prepared to escort him away, Isaiah unexpectedly approached him one final time. The courtroom watched in stunned silence. Curtis couldn't even meet Isaiah's eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered brokenly. Isaiah studied him carefully before responding. "Then make sure the man who did this never comes back again." Those words lingered long after Curtis disappeared through the courtroom doors. Months later, Port Charles still struggled to recover from the nightmare. Curtis remained in treatment, confronting painful truths about himself he'd buried for years. Portia visited occasionally, Jordan too, but nothing returned to normal, because some moments change people forever. And the night Curtis Ashford assaulted Isaiah Gannon became one of those moments. A line crossed, a soul fractured, a tragedy nobody could erase. Yet somewhere beneath the shame and destruction, a fragile possibility still remained. Redemption, not forgiveness, not forgetting, but the painful hope that even broken people might someday rebuild themselves from the ruins they created. And in Port Charles, hope has always survived longer than anyone expects. Thank you for watching. Write what you think about it. Subscribe to the channel.